Joined now by Bob Harby, Executive Director of Microlise and one of the brains behind this whole fantastic event. So thanks for spending a bit of time, Bob. I know it's getting late in the day now. You must be
Exhausted, yeah.
But you've done a great job, you and the team.
Thank you.
I can't take my hat off enough to you. It's been a fantastic day again.
Thank you.
I'd just like to talk a little bit about the driver awards for the day, first of all.
Yeah.
I was involved in the judging panel with sort of other great leaders in the industry like Unite and the ex-traffic commissioner Joan, and as well as a number of lady drivers winners, which I thought was fantastic. One thing I did notice was certain operators kept coming to the top, and the driver population for the shortlist is picked on the driving performance. So obviously certain operators are doing something right with the technology, that they are overrepresented in the finalists of the drivers. What would you say those operators are doing better than the others?
I think what they do is they have a level of respect for the drivers that perhaps some other operators don't, and they're prepared to invest in the drivers. If you take Kalina and Bibby Distribution, they appear year on year, and it's not and Samworth Brothers, and it's not by chance that happens. They run academies. They do quite innovative things like warehouse to wheels, family and friends, all those sort of things. But it's also about the people that they employ as well, who actually do the education. So they'll have people who are dedicated as driver trainers. You've got experienced drivers that have come out of the actual day-to-day delivery work and actually are mentoring the next generation of drivers coming through. So they're actually spending money on the training, and it's not a surprise every year that the same sort of companies bubble to the top. But I think it's about having that desire to grow your own and to put everything in place necessary to ensure that you have got the best drivers. I think on top of that, the technology obviously helps, but without the setup of having the driver training schools, the academies, the technology is just going to tell you what's happening out in the field. You've got to then change the behaviour. So it's a combination of using the technology, having the infrastructure to support your drivers, and also having the respect for them as well. And it was really interesting. The guy who won the Driver of the Year, the overall award, when he came up on stage was saying that he was really happy to accept that award on behalf of Bibby and the team at Bibby. And there's a great example of mutual respect from a driver to a company and vice versa.
Do you think drivers' attitudes towards telematics technology are changing? I think when it was first put into cabs, there was a lot of suspicion it was there as a stick to beat up drivers and highlight their deficiencies, whereas you say the good companies use it as a positive tool to help improve drivers rather than penalise them.
Yeah, I think that there's been a massive shift in attitude. I think a lot of the older generation, when the technology came in, just like the digital tachograph, when that came in, it was a spy in the cab, and that was certainly how it was perceived. I think now drivers realise it's there to effectively help them drive better, to help them earn more money for the companies that have a scheme which actually does a profit share with the drivers. And it also protects the drivers as well, because you're involved in an accident now. If you've got forward-facing cameras or rear-facing cameras, you've got the telematics data, you're involved in an accident, all the information's there. And unfortunately, drivers without that type of technology, if they're involved in an accident, they're the biggest vehicle on the road at the point and the accident happened. It's got to be the driver's fault in the truck. So I think there is an acceptance of it. It's nice today to have Unite the Union here. We're doing a little bit of work with those guys now, their shop stewards, to help them better understand the technology so that they can actually communicate that to their drivers that they represent. And also they can actually work with the employers and ensure that it isn't a stick. It's it's a carrot as well, because it's got to be a fine balance. So certainly attitudes have changed a lot, but I think there's still work to do, and I think our engagement with the unions is going to help. It's it's a fine line to tread, but I think you've just got to get out there and dispel all the myths and make sure everybody has the same view of the technology and it's used correctly. You can use it to beat people up, you can use it to reward people, and the better results come from the rewards.
Yes. Now we see a lot more linking of telematics with cameras.
Yeah.
And again, cameras have had a mixed reception from drivers I think the forward-facing cameras now seem to be widely accepted. They are there for driver protection in case of an accident.
Yeah.
A little bit more reticence about cameras facing the driver.
Yeah.
Where do you see cameras and telematics going as a joint technology in
I
the future?
think I think they're going to become one and the same thing. You know, you can see some of the technology providers now have actually got telematics and cameras built into one box. And I agree with you about the nervousness about the inward-facing camera. You know, imagine you're the CEO of a business and there's a camera on your desk and it's pointing straight at you and it's going to be there all day. That chief executive would not like that, and we're asking drivers to sit there with a camera pointing at them. So I think that is going to be a tougher sell. I can understand why people do think that potentially is a spy in the cab, but you know, you just wouldn't. You know, most of us, if we've got laptops with a camera built into them, we've got something stuck over them. So, you know, that shows you that us as office-based workers don't like it. So pushing a camera into a driver's face, but equally, again, you know, I think if there is an accident and the driver, it needs to be proved that the driver wasn't on the phone, wasn't distracted by anything. It's the footage in that camera that's going to protect them. So again, I think it's about explaining how it's being used. It's not an infringement in anybody's human rights. Obviously, there's data protection rules and regulations now. So again, it's the reputable companies will use it correctly. And they'll get the best results out of it, but equally it can be abused, so it can be a problem.
The other technologies seem to be coming closer together are telematics and satellite navigation, stroke routing and scheduling. And you've got a stake now in TrackMate, and we had Google Earth speaking here today. What is the relationship now? Is there going to be one technology is going to become dominant and leading the way with the integration of all these devices in the cab? And will it be Microlise? Will it be TomTom? Who's going to be leading the charge?
Yes. That's a very difficult question to answer. The one thing I can say is there's a lot of consolidation going off in the marketplace, and the consolidation is happening because companies need volume, and you need volume basically to make enough money to keep up with the rate of refresh of technologies. I can see all these things slowly coming together into one lump. I could see there's going to be a technology platform on a truck. I can see companies like us not having to design black boxes anymore because there'll be technology on the truck, and we will take a feed either directly from a truck like a DAF or an MAN, or we'll take it from one of their servers. But the data has to be provided to us in the correct format. At the moment, the manufacturers do have their own systems. They're very engineer focused, so it's all engineering based. It doesn't do what the logistics operator wants. So I think there's always going to be room for companies like Microlise and people that specialise in logistics or whatever industry they're in with this type of technology, because obviously we're also in construction as well. But I do see it all coming together. But is there going to be a market leader out there? Hard to say. I think it won't be that many decades before everything is tracked. Cars, bikes, vans, lorries. So it will become ubiquitous. There's no question about that.
Yeah, it's quite a scary future to a certain extent when you see everything's going to be connected to everything else. And if you're a big fan of sci-fi like me and you watch the Terminator films, you know, this idea of big data where everyone is monitored all the time. It is a bit of a scary future, but it seems to be the way things are going. It's a tide we can't turn back almost.
Well, no, you're right, and you just need to listen to what Paul from Google said. You know, at the end of the day, they collected more data in the last 12 months than the human race has collected in its entire history. And the Internet of Things, which is the buzz term for this, everything will be connected. You know, we're now working with Bluetooth technologies and putting them on tags on roll cages, so that becomes a connected device now. It's read by the tracking unit. So I think unfortunately everything is going to be tracked everywhere, and hopefully it'll make the place a more efficient environment to be in. You know, the planet will become more efficient.
I mean, the UK, the empty running stats remain frighteningly high. Last time I saw was 27-28% of trucks out there are carrying nothing at all, and the holy grail of this big data would be to reduce that 28% down to maybe 5% or something. But the competitive pressures, while we've still got a very competitive industry out there, there's going to be a limit to how much data DHL want to share with Wincanton and Stobarts, isn't there? So how is that going to be managed? How can we use that data without giving away competitive secrets?
I think we have a product called the Geo Hub, which is actually a collaborative logistics product, and what that enables an operator to do is actually share their work with other people, and they can share it in a way that only the information that is absolutely necessary to be passed on to another operator is actually passed on. So you do it on a consignment by consignment basis or a load by load basis. But there's got to be collaboration. That's key to this now, and we are seeing more and more of it, because I think as costs of distribution increase, the demands from the general public increase. Everybody wants everything now. Companies do have to work together, and I think that's another big area to go after, because it's all right having the safest drivers, the best, most economic drivers out there, but if there's nothing in the back, you're just burning fuel and sticking carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
I mean, do you get the feeling, sitting where you're sitting, you see quite a lot of the industry and things going on, that if we're going to achieve the environmental reductions in carbon emissions and other things, is our current lifestyle, can we get the industry to a point where it can deliver what people want, the next day delivery, the same day delivery, on-demand transport, on-demand deliveries? Or is the industry going to have to fundamentally change, you think, from where you're sitting?
I think from where we're sitting, there is a limit to how far you can go with the diesel engine. We're on Euro 6 now. I think the last stats I heard was a Euro 6 vehicle is now that clean that 30 of them equal the same output as a 1980s truck. So, we've made massive steps forward, or the manufacturers have made massive steps forwards in cleaning up the trucks. We're helping obviously by improving the utilisation of the trucks in terms of limiting the amount of miles they're doing, make sure they're doing optimum routes, making sure the drivers are efficient. But at the end of the day, you can only squeeze so much juice out of that lemon. I think we're getting to a point where there has to be a step change. With all technologies, at some point you end up at a blind alley and you've got to actually take a turning and go in another direction. It was nice to see MAN showing their electric vehicle for the first time. I think a number of delegates today commented on the fact that they didn't realise that you can get a van, an MAN TGE, which is fully electric, that does nearly 200 kilometres, and I think that was a big surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah. As long as you don't mind having it in left-hand drive, but anyway.
That's with a German number plate. Yeah, absolutely.
So just looking forward 12 months finally.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to think about the next event because you've just got through this one.
Well, unfortunately we do. We have to think about it. I'll be thinking about it on the way home, because we've always got to top. We've always got to top what we've done the previous year. So,
I mean, what do you think will be out there this time next year? Will it be all electric vehicles, no diesels at all, or will it still going to be a mix, isn't it?
I still think it's going to be a mix. I think, like cars, we're probably going to go through a hybrid stage. I can't see that the electric solution is going to be all things to all people. So I think it will be a combination. I think next year it will be still a major part of the agenda, talking about alternative fuels. There'll be a lot of enhancements. I think the rate of pace of change is just increasing significantly. So that will be a big topic for next year. We'll probably all still be talking about Brexit as well. So we might cover that next year. We obviously avoided it this year, but
I was trying to avoid it as well. You're the first guy speaking to. I wasn't going to mention Brexit with.
No.
It's one of those things, Brexit, isn't it? It's sort of. I don't know whether it's not got off the agenda, but I think the constant extensions of the deadline is.
I think everybody's given up on it. Is the reality.
I think people are bored of Brexit.
They are. So yes, it was a Brexit-free zone until I mentioned it a minute ago.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Bob, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Steve.
And well
nice
done
to
again.
meet you.
It's been a brilliant event again. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.